My name is Rachel Montenegro, and I built a software company from my college dorm room to a $110 million valuation in 7 years. Then my stepmother convinced the board to make my half-sister CEO while I was recovering from surgery, so I deleted every line of code I had ever written and watched their empire crumble in real time. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Rachel Montenegro. I am 31 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was the founder and CEO of Nexus Analytics, a machine learning platform that revolutionized how Fortune 500 companies process customer data. From the outside, my life represented the ultimate Silicon Valley success story. A corner office on the 42nd floor of a glass tower in downtown Seattle, a penthouse apartment overlooking Elliott Bay, and a company valuation that had venture capitalists calling me the next tech unicorn. But last Tuesday, I received a phone call that transported me back to a childhood I had spent years trying to forget. My half-sister Diana was on the other end of the line, her voice dripping with the same condescending sweetness I remembered from when we were children. She was calling to inform me that the board of directors had voted to remove me as CEO of the company I had built from nothing, effective immediately. Have you ever had someone steal credit for your life's work? If you have ever been betrayed by family members who were supposed to support your dreams, if someone has ever tried to erase your contributions and claim your achievements as their own, share your story in the comments below. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell because what I am about to reveal will show you that sometimes the people closest to you can become your greatest enemies, but also that true power comes from being irreplaceable in ways they never understood. The betrayal I experienced was not just professional, it was deeply personal, rooted in family dynamics that had been festering for over 2 decades. But what happened next proved that the most devastating revenge is not anger or retaliation. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your true worth and being willing to walk away from everything rather than let others diminish your value. 3 months ago, I was featured on the cover of Forbes magazine as one of the top female entrepreneurs under 35. The article described my journey from a scholarship student at University of Washington to the founder of one of the fastest-growing software companies in the Pacific Northwest. Reporters called me a visionary, investors called me a genius, and industry leaders invited me to speak at conferences about innovation and disruption. But the story that Forbes told was sanitized and polished, focusing on the glamorous aspects of entrepreneurial success, while glossing over the brutal realities of building a company from nothing. They did not mention the nights I slept in my car during my senior year of college because I could not afford both rent and the server costs for my prototype software. They did not discuss the 3 years I survived on ramen noodles and coffee while working 18-hour days to perfect my algorithms. Most importantly, they did not reveal the family dynamics that had shaped every decision I made, every risk I took, and every sacrifice I endured to build something that no one could take away from me. At least, that is what I believed until my stepmother, Victoria Montenegro, proved that even the most carefully constructed success can be vulnerable to betrayal from those who share your last name. The phone call that changed everything came on a Thursday morning in early September. I was in my office reviewing quarterly projections when my assistant informed me that Diana was on line 2, calling from the company's main conference room. This was unusual because Diana worked in our marketing department and rarely had reason to contact me directly during business hours. "Rachel," Diana said when I picked up the phone, her voice carrying a strange mixture of nervousness and authority. "I need you to come to conference room A immediately. There are some people here who need to speak with you." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten with apprehension, but I assumed this was related to a client presentation or strategic partnership discussion. I walked down the hall to our largest conference room, expecting to find potential investors or corporate partners waiting to discuss collaboration opportunities. Instead, I found myself facing 6 members of Nexus Analytics' board of directors, including 2 representatives from our primary venture capital firm, the chief financial officer who had been with the company for 4 years, and my stepmother Victoria, who had never attended a board meeting in the 5 years since she had invested in the company. Victoria was sitting at the head of the conference table, wearing an impeccably tailored navy suit and the kind of cold smile that I remembered from my childhood whenever she was about to deliver news that would devastate me while maintaining plausible deniability about her intentions. Diana was seated to her right, clutching a folder of documents and avoiding eye contact with me. "Rachel," Victoria said, her voice carrying the authoritative tone she had perfected during her years as a corporate attorney, "please have a seat. We have some important company business to discuss." I remained standing, suddenly understanding that this was not a normal business meeting. The energy in the room felt hostile and predetermined, as if decisions had been made before I had even been summoned. "What kind of business requires a board meeting that I was not informed about?" I asked, looking around the table at people I had considered allies and partners. James Morrison, the lead partner from our venture capital firm, cleared his throat and began reading from a prepared statement. "Rachel, the board has been reviewing the company's performance and strategic direction over the past quarter. While we appreciate your contributions to Nexus Analytics development, we have determined that the company would benefit from new leadership at the executive level." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I maintained my composure while my mind raced to understand what was happening. "New leadership?" I repeated, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. "Are you referring to additional C-suite positions or organizational restructuring?" Victoria leaned forward slightly, her expression conveying the kind of satisfaction that comes from delivering a long-anticipated blow. "Rachel, the board has voted to remove you from your position as Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately. Diana will be assuming the role of interim CEO while we conduct a search for permanent leadership." The conference room fell silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning system and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. I looked around the table at each board member, searching for signs of dissent or discomfort with this decision, but found only carefully neutral expressions and avoided eye contact. "On what grounds?" I asked, my voice gaining strength as the initial shock transformed into focused determination. "Nexus Analytics has exceeded every performance metric for the past 18 months. Our client retention rate is 97%, our revenue growth is 40% year over year, and we just signed contracts worth $38 million in new business." Victoria pulled out a thick folder and placed it on the table in front of her. "The board has identified several areas of concern regarding your leadership capabilities and decision-making processes. There have been questions about your management style, your ability to scale the organization effectively, and your communication with key stakeholders. I realized immediately that this was a carefully orchestrated coup that had been planned for months, possibly years. The accusations were vague enough to be difficult to refute, but serious enough to justify dramatic action. More importantly, they were being delivered by my stepmother, who had contributed exactly $2 million to our Series B funding round in exchange for a board seat that I had foolishly believed was symbolic rather than strategic. "I assume you have documentation supporting these concerns?" I said, maintaining professional composure while internally calculating my options and resources. James Morrison spoke up, his voice carrying the uncomfortable tone of someone who knew he was participating in something ethically questionable, but financially advantageous. "Rachel, this decision was not made lightly. The board has been discussing these issues for several months, and we believe that new leadership will position the company for continued growth and expansion." Diana finally looked up from her folder, her eyes meeting mine for the first time since I had entered the room. "Rachel, we want this transition to be as smooth as possible. We are prepared to offer you a generous severance package and a consulting role that would allow you to maintain involvement with the company's technical development." The patronizing tone in Diana's voice triggered memories of our childhood, when she would offer to help me with homework or share her toys in ways that always resulted in her gaining advantage while making me feel grateful for scraps of consideration. She was 3 years younger than me, had joined Nexus Analytics only 18 months earlier with no relevant experience, and had never written a single line of code or closed a single major deal. "Let me understand this correctly," I said, walking slowly around the conference table while maintaining eye contact with each board member. "You are removing me as CEO of the company I founded, that I built from nothing, that carries my technical innovations and strategic vision, and you are replacing me with someone who has been here for less than 2 years and whose primary qualification is being Victoria's daughter." Victoria's expression hardened, and for a moment I saw the cold calculation that had always existed beneath her polished exterior. "Rachel, Diana has an MBA from Wharton and extensive experience in corporate strategy and operations management. She is highly qualified to lead this organization through its next phase of growth." I laughed, not with humor, but with the kind of bitter recognition that comes from finally understanding the scope of a betrayal that has been years in the making. Diana's MBA is in marketing, and her experience consists of 18 months in our marketing department and 2 years at a consulting firm where she analyzed other people's businesses without ever building anything herself. The room fell silent again, and I could see discomfort spreading across the faces of board members who were beginning to realize they were witnessing a family drama rather than a professional transition. But Victoria had clearly prepared for this moment, and she was not going to allow emotional appeals or logical arguments to derail her carefully planned coup. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Rachel," Victoria said, her voice taking on the kind of measured tone that lawyers use when delivering devastating news. "Your emotional reaction to this decision demonstrates exactly the kind of leadership instability that concerns the board. Diana has the temperament and strategic thinking necessary to guide Nexus Analytics through complex growth challenges." I realized in that moment that Victoria had been planning this betrayal since the day she invested in my company, possibly since the day I had first achieved success that exceeded anything her biological daughter had accomplished. This was not about company performance or leadership capabilities. This was about a woman who could not tolerate watching her stepdaughter succeed in ways that made her own daughter's achievements seem mediocre by comparison. The meeting continued for another 20 minutes, during which various board members presented financial projections and strategic analyses that had obviously been prepared to justify a predetermined decision. They discussed transition timelines, severance packages, and consulting arrangements with the kind of professional efficiency that masked the personal destruction they were orchestrating. Throughout this presentation, I remained silent, listening carefully and taking mental notes while formulating a response that would be both immediate and decisive. Victoria and Diana had clearly spent months preparing for this moment, building alliances with board members, and creating justifications for their actions. But they had made one critical error in their planning. They had forgotten that Nexus Analytics was not just a company I had founded. It was a software platform that I had personally architected, coded, and refined over 7 years of obsessive development. Every algorithm, every user interface, every data processing protocol, and every security feature existed because I had created it. The company's value was not in its office space, its client relationships, or its brand recognition. The company's value was in the proprietary technology that existed solely in my mind and in code repositories that I controlled. As Victoria concluded her presentation and the board members began discussing implementation timelines, I stood up from the conference table and walked toward the door. "Rachel," Diana called after me, "we need to discuss the transition process and your severance terms." I turned back to face the room, looking directly at Victoria while addressing my response to the entire board. "There will be no transition process because there is nothing to transition. You have voted to remove me as CEO of my own company, which is your legal right as board members. But you seem to have forgotten that the technology platform you are acquiring control of exists, because I created it, I maintain it, and I control access to it." Victoria's expression shifted from satisfaction to concern as she began to understand the implications of what I was saying. "Rachel, you have contractual obligations regarding intellectual property and proprietary technology. Any attempt to sabotage or damage company assets would result in immediate legal action." I smiled for the first time since entering the conference room, but it was not a friendly expression. "Victoria, I am not going to sabotage anything. I am simply going to exercise my right to protect my intellectual property and remove my personal contributions from a company that no longer wants my leadership." Over the following week, I systematically and methodically deleted every line of code I had ever written for Nexus Analytics. I removed algorithms I had developed during graduate school, machine learning models I had refined through years of testing, and user interface designs that had taken months of iteration to perfect. I deleted backup files, documentation, and technical specifications that existed only in repositories I controlled. Most importantly, I deleted the core processing engine that made Nexus Analytics' software platform functional. This was not vandalism or emotional retaliation. This was the calculated decision of a software engineer who understood that intellectual property belongs to the person who creates it, regardless of corporate ownership structures or board voting rights. Within 72 hours of my removal as CEO, Nexus Analytics' software platform stopped functioning. Client data could not be processed, new accounts could not be created, and existing users could not access their analytics dashboards. Diana, who had been installed as my replacement, discovered that being CEO of a technology company requires more than an MBA and corporate strategy experience. The emergency board meeting that followed was, according to sources who remained loyal to me, the most chaotic and desperate corporate gathering in the company's history. Diana had to admit to clients and investors that the entire technological foundation of the business had disappeared overnight. Victoria faced questions from venture capital partners about due diligence processes and asset protection that she could not answer satisfactorily. By the end of the month, Nexus Analytics had lost 60% of its client base, 2 major venture capital firms had withdrawn their support, and the company's valuation had dropped from $110 million to essentially zero. Diana lasted 6 weeks as CEO before resigning, and Victoria was removed from the board of directors by unanimous vote of the remaining members. The technology industry is smaller than most people realize, and news of the Nexus Analytics collapse spread quickly through investor networks and startup communities. But rather than damaging my reputation, the story enhanced it. Other entrepreneurs and investors recognized that I had demonstrated something rare and valuable: the integrity to walk away from everything, rather than allow others to diminish my contributions. Within 2 months of leaving Nexus Analytics, I received funding offers from 3 different venture capital firms who wanted to support my next project. By the end of the year, I had founded Meridian Systems, a new software company that builds on the innovations I had developed at Nexus Analytics, but with ownership structures and legal protections that ensure no one can steal my work again. The Forbes article that featured me on their cover was published 6 months after the Nexus Analytics collapse, and the journalist who interviewed me specifically wanted to understand how I had turned corporate betrayal into entrepreneurial opportunity. What would you tell other founders who are facing similar challenges from family members or business partners? She asked during our interview. My answer was simple but comprehensive. Never build anything you are not prepared to destroy, rather than let others control it. And never trust anyone with your life's work who has not earned that trust through their own sacrifices and contributions. Today, Meridian Systems is valued at $85 million and growing rapidly, with client contracts that exceed anything Nexus Analytics ever achieved. Diana works for a marketing agency in Portland, earning a fraction of what she might have made if she had been content to succeed through her own efforts, rather than through eliminating mine. Victoria returned to her law practice, where she specializes in corporate governance and apparently learned nothing from her spectacular failure as a board member. But this story is not really about revenge or family drama or corporate politics. This story is about understanding your own value and being willing to protect it, even when that protection requires sacrificing everything you have built. It is about recognizing that some people will never celebrate your success because your achievements make their failures more visible. Most importantly, this story is about the fact that true power in any field comes from being irreplaceable, not from titles or positions or board votes. When you create something genuinely valuable, something that exists because of your unique talents and contributions, you hold power that no one can vote away or steal through manipulation. The technology industry is full of stories about founders who were pushed out of companies they created. From Steve Jobs at Apple to the founders of Twitter and Facebook who lost control to investors and boards of directors. But most of those founders did not have the technical knowledge or legal positioning to take their innovations with them when they left. I did, because I had learned early in my career that intellectual property is the only asset that truly belongs to its creator. Everything else, offices, employees, client relationships, brand recognition, can be transferred or stolen. But knowledge, creativity, and the ability to build something from nothing cannot be taken away unless you surrender them voluntarily. The most satisfying part of this entire experience was not watching Nexus Analytics collapse or seeing Victoria and Diana face the consequences of their betrayal. The most satisfying part was proving to myself that I did not need their approval, their support, or their company to succeed. I had built Nexus Analytics once, and I could build something even better without them. That knowledge, that absolute confidence in my own capabilities and value, is worth more than any corporate title or board position or family relationship. It is the foundation of true success. Knowing that your achievements belong to you, that your talents cannot be diminished by others, and that you have the power to create value wherever you go. This is just the beginning of my story, and if you want to understand how a girl from a working-class family in Tacoma became someone who could walk away from a $100 million company rather than compromise her principles, you need to hear about the childhood that taught me the difference between people who build things and people who steal them. My story begins in Tacoma, Washington, in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat that my mother, Elena Montenegro, managed for $43 a day plus free rent. The building was constructed in the 1940s and had never been properly updated, so our living space carried the perpetual smell of industrial detergent, mixed with the dampness that Seattle area buildings develop when their heating systems cannot quite overcome the Pacific Northwest climate. Elena had immigrated to America from El Salvador when she was 19 years old, carrying nothing but a high school diploma, fluency in Spanish and English, and an unshakable belief that hard work could overcome any disadvantage. She had been a bookkeeper in San Salvador, managing financial records for a small manufacturing company, but her credentials meant nothing in Washington state without expensive certification processes that remained perpetually out of reach. The laundromat job provided stability and housing, but barely enough income to cover basic necessities. Elena worked 12-hour shifts 6 days a week, maintaining industrial washing machines, handling customer service, and managing the building's rental properties for an owner who lived in Bellevue and visited the facility approximately twice per year. Her salary was supplemented by tips from customers who appreciated her meticulous attention to their laundry and her willingness to stay late when machines broke down. I was born in 1992 during Elena's second year in Tacoma, and for the first 4 years of my life, our family consisted of just the two of us in that small apartment, with mismatched furniture and windows that faced the alley behind the building. Elena had decorated our living space with bright fabrics and photographs of relatives in El Salvador, creating warmth in a place that could have felt institutional and temporary. Every morning, I would wake up to the sound of industrial washing machines starting their first cycle of the day, a rhythm that became the soundtrack to my early childhood. Elena would prepare breakfast on a hot plate because our kitchen was too small for a full stove, and we would eat together at a small table she had positioned near the window so we could watch the sunrise over the Tacoma skyline. Elena spoke to me exclusively in Spanish until I was 3 years old, determined that I would grow up bilingual, even though she worried this might disadvantage me in American schools. She would tell me stories about her childhood in El Salvador, describing a life filled with extended family, traditional celebrations, and community connections that were completely absent from our existence in Tacoma. "Mija," she would say during our evening conversations as she folded other people's laundry while I played with toy blocks on the floor. In El Salvador, we had very little money, but we had family everywhere. Here, we have more opportunities, but we must create our own family through the people who prove they care about us. When I was 4 years old, Elena began dating Marcus Montenegro, a construction foreman who managed residential building projects throughout Pierce County. Marcus was a soft-spoken man with calloused hands and a methodical approach to problem-solving that I would later recognize in my own personality. He had been married before, and his ex-wife had relocated to California with their daughter Diana, who was 1 year old when Elena and I first met Marcus. Marcus represented stability and opportunity for Elena, who had been managing single parenthood while working exhausting hours for minimal pay. He owned a small house in a working-class neighborhood near Joint Base Lewis McChord, complete with a real kitchen, separate bedrooms, and a backyard where I could play safely. More importantly, he treated Elena with respect and gentleness that had been absent from her life since leaving El Salvador. The courtship between Elena and Marcus lasted 8 months, during which I gradually adjusted to having a male figure in our daily routine. Marcus would visit our apartment above the laundromat, bringing groceries and small gifts while demonstrating the kind of thoughtful consistency that Elena had learned to value above romantic gestures. He would help repair broken appliances, assist with building maintenance tasks, and play simple games with me while Elena finished her evening work. When Elena and Marcus married in a small ceremony at Tacoma City Hall, I was 5 years old and finally ready to believe that our family situation might become permanently stable. We moved into Marcus's house, and for the first time in my life, I had my own bedroom. A real kitchen where Elena could cook proper meals, and a sense of belonging in a neighborhood where children played in yards and families knew each other's names. Marcus formally adopted me 6 months after the wedding, giving me his last name and legal recognition as his daughter. This gesture meant more to Elena than any romantic declaration, because it provided me with security and legitimacy that she had worried about since my birth. Marcus never made distinctions between his biological daughter and his adopted daughter. At least not during the early years when Diana lived in California and visited only during summer months. The house in Tacoma became a place where I could develop interests and hobbies that had been impossible in our cramped apartment above the laundromat. Marcus had converted the basement into a workshop where he restored furniture and built custom cabinets during evenings and weekends. He taught me to use basic tools, measure accurately, and understand how things were constructed. Lessons that would prove invaluable when I later needed to build software systems from foundational principles. Elena continued working at the laundromat for 2 more years after our move, but Marcus eventually convinced her to pursue a certification program that would allow her to work as a bookkeeper for legitimate businesses rather than managing industrial washing machines. She attended evening classes at Tacoma Community College while maintaining her job, studying accounting principles and business software applications at our kitchen table after I had gone to bed. Those evening study sessions became formative experiences for me. Even though I was too young to understand the content Elena was learning, I would sit beside her with coloring books or simple puzzles, absorbing the discipline and concentration she brought to mastering new skills. She would explain basic mathematical concepts to me as she worked through her assignments, teaching me to add and subtract long before I encountered these operations in school. "Rachel," she would say as she balanced practice accounts and reconciled financial statements, "numbers never lie, but people sometimes do. If you understand numbers, you can always know the truth about situations, even when people try to confuse you with words." This early exposure to analytical thinking and systematic problem-solving shaped my cognitive development in ways that would become apparent years later when I discovered computer programming. Elena was unknowingly teaching me to think in logical sequences, to check my work for errors, and to understand that complex problems could be solved through methodical attention to detail. When I started kindergarten at Lockburn Elementary School, I was already reading at a 2nd grade level and could perform mathematical calculations that impressed my teachers. Elena had spent countless hours reading to me in both Spanish and English, using library books and educational materials she obtained through community programs designed to support immigrant families. My academic abilities were immediately apparent to my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, who recommended that I be tested for the district's gifted education program. Elena was initially skeptical of this suggestion, worried that special programs might separate me from other children or create expectations that our family could not support financially. In El Salvador, Elena explained to Mrs. Rodriguez during their first conference, smart children from poor families sometimes get opportunities that their parents cannot afford to maintain. I do not want Rachel to start something we cannot finish. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had worked with immigrant families throughout her career, understood Elena's concerns and spent considerable time explaining how the gifted program operated within the public school system. There were no additional costs for families, transportation was provided, and the curriculum was designed to challenge students while maintaining their connections to their home schools and communities. The testing process for gifted education took place over several weeks during my kindergarten year, involving written assessments, problem-solving exercises, and interviews with school psychologists who evaluated both intellectual capacity and emotional readiness for accelerated learning. I approached these tests with curiosity rather than anxiety, treating them as interesting puzzles rather than high-stakes evaluations. The results showed that I scored in the 98th percentile for verbal reasoning and the 99th percentile for mathematical logic, placing me among the highest-performing students in the entire district. Mrs. Rodriguez called Elena with the results and recommended immediate placement in advanced academic programs that could provide appropriate intellectual challenges. Elena's reaction to this news was complex, combining pride in my abilities with anxiety about navigating educational systems she did not fully understand. She had always known I was intelligent, but she had no frame of reference for what these test scores meant or what opportunities they might create. Marcus, who had attended public schools in Washington state, was better equipped to understand the potential significance of these results. "Elena," Marcus said during their discussion about my test scores, "this could change everything for Rachel. If she really is as smart as these tests say, she could get scholarships to college, maybe even to universities that we could never afford otherwise." The decision to enroll me in the gifted education program represented a turning point for our family, not just academically but socially and culturally. Elena would need to interact with teachers, administrators, and other parents who came from different economic and educational backgrounds. She would need to advocate for my educational needs while learning to navigate institutional systems that operated according to unwritten rules she had never encountered. During the summer before first grade, Elena enrolled herself in an English as a second language course, specifically designed for parents whose children were entering advanced academic programs. She was determined to ensure that language barriers would not prevent her from supporting my education effectively. She practiced pronunciation, learned educational terminology, and studied American school culture with the same methodical approach she had brought to her bookkeeping certification. My first day in the gifted education program was also Elena's first experience with the social dynamics of high-achieving academic environments. The other parents dropping off their children were predominantly white, well-dressed, and comfortable discussing educational strategies and enrichment opportunities that were completely foreign to our family's experience. Elena had dressed in her best professional clothes and practiced English phrases she might need during conversations with teachers or other parents. She walked me to the classroom door, spoke briefly with my new teacher, and returned home feeling overwhelmed by the differences between our family and the families surrounding us in this new educational environment. That evening, as Elena helped me organize school supplies and prepare for the academic challenges ahead, she shared advice that would shape my approach to competition and achievement for the rest of my life. "Mija," she said as we arranged pencils and notebooks on my small desk, "some of these children have parents who went to university, who understand how schools work, who know how to help their children succeed. We are learning these things together, but that does not mean you cannot be as successful as they are." She paused, looking directly at me with the kind of serious expression that indicated she was sharing something important. "You will work harder than some of these children because you are starting from a different place. But working harder will make you stronger, and being stronger will help you succeed in ways that they might not be able to understand." This conversation established a framework for understanding academic competition that emphasized effort over natural talent, resilience over initial advantages, and long-term development over short-term comparisons. Elena was teaching me that success would require sustained effort, and that our family's lack of educational background was a challenge to overcome rather than an excuse for accepting limitations. The first year in the gifted program was academically stimulating, but socially challenging. I was intellectually capable of handling the accelerated curriculum, but I lacked the cultural references and background knowledge that many of my classmates took for granted. They discussed family trips to museums and educational destinations, summer camps focused on science or technology, and books their parents had recommended that were not available in our local library. Elena addressed these gaps through systematic research and community resource utilization that demonstrated remarkable creativity and determination. She identified free cultural events in Tacoma and Seattle, arranged transportation to museums and educational programs, and created learning opportunities that substituted for the expensive enrichment activities that other families could afford. Saturday mornings became dedicated to educational expeditions, where Elena and I would visit the Washington State History Museum, attend free lectures at the University of Washington Tacoma campus, or explore the Tacoma Art Museum during Community Appreciation Days. Elena would prepare for these visits by reading about the exhibits or topics in advance, ensuring that our time was educational, rather than merely recreational. These experiences were formative not just because of their educational content, but because they demonstrated Elena's commitment to ensuring that my academic potential would not be limited by our family's economic circumstances. She was teaching me that intellectual curiosity and systematic effort could overcome many disadvantages, and that education was valuable enough to justify significant personal sacrifices. By the end of first grade, I had established myself as one of the top performers in the gifted program, consistently scoring at the highest levels on academic assessments, while developing strong relationships with teachers who recognized both my intellectual abilities and my exceptional work ethic. My success was built on the foundation Elena had created through her own determination to master unfamiliar systems and provide opportunities she had never experienced herself. The pride Elena felt in my academic achievements was evident in her careful preservation of every report card, every teacher comment, and every certificate or recognition I received. She created a filing system for my educational records that would have impressed any professional administrator, understanding intuitively that documentation would be important for future opportunities. Marcus supported my academic development through practical contributions that complemented Elena's educational advocacy. He built me a proper desk with adjustable height and excellent lighting, created organizational systems for my books and school supplies, and established household routines that prioritized homework time and intellectual development. More importantly, Marcus provided stability and emotional support that allowed Elena to focus her energy on educational advocacy rather than basic survival concerns. His steady income from construction work, combined with Elena's eventual transition to bookkeeping, gave our family financial security that had been absent during my early childhood. This security was crucial because it allowed Elena to make decisions based on my long-term educational interests rather than immediate economic pressures. When teachers recommended additional testing, special programs, or educational opportunities that required time or transportation costs, Elena could consider these suggestions seriously rather than automatically declining due to financial constraints. The foundation of academic excellence, family support, and systematic effort that was established during these early years would prove essential when I later faced challenges that tested both my intellectual capabilities and my resilience. Elena and Marcus had created an environment where education was valued, hard work was expected, and long-term planning was prioritized over immediate gratification. Most importantly, they had taught me that success was not determined by starting circumstances, but by the willingness to work systematically toward long-term goals, even when those goals required sustained effort over many years. This perspective would become crucial when I later needed to build complex software systems, navigate competitive academic environments, and eventually create business value in industries where I had no family connections or natural advantages. The lessons learned during these formative years were not just about academic achievement, but about character development, resilience, and the understanding that true success comes from the ability to create value through sustained effort rather than depending on inherited advantages or external validation. During my third-grade year at Lockburn Elementary, I encountered the teacher who would fundamentally alter the trajectory of my educational journey and introduce me to possibilities that my family had never imagined. Dr. Margaret Hendricks had recently joined the faculty after completing her doctoral dissertation on mathematical cognition in elementary students, and she brought both advanced academic credentials and genuine enthusiasm for identifying exceptional potential in unexpected places. Dr. Hendricks was in her early 30s, with prematurely gray hair that she wore in a practical style that suggested someone more interested in intellectual pursuits than personal appearance. She had grown up in rural Montana as the daughter of a rancher and a public school teacher, experiences that had taught her to recognize intelligence and determination regardless of socioeconomic circumstances or family background. Her classroom was unlike any learning environment I had previously experienced. The walls were covered with mathematical puzzles, logic problems, and visual representations of complex concepts that challenged students to think beyond standard curriculum requirements. She had arranged the desks in collaborative clusters rather than traditional rows, encouraging discussion and peer learning that made academic work feel engaging rather than competitive. Dr. Hendricks possessed an unusual ability to observe student behavior and identify cognitive patterns that other teachers missed entirely. During my first week in her class, she noticed that I completed mathematical assignments significantly faster than my peers, and spent the additional time creating elaborate extensions to the problems that demonstrated advanced logical reasoning. Rather than simply giving me additional worksheets to occupy the extra time, Dr. Hendricks approached me privately after class with a proposal that would change everything. "Rachel," she said, settling into the chair beside my desk, "I have been watching how you work through mathematical problems, and I think you might enjoy some different kinds of challenges." She opened a folder containing materials I had never seen before, logic puzzles that required multiple steps to solve, mathematical concepts that involved abstract thinking rather than simple computation, and problems that required creative approaches rather than memorized procedures. These are the kinds of activities that university students work on, she explained. I would like to see how you approach them. The puzzles were unlike anything I had encountered in school or during Elena's evening study sessions. They required sustained concentration, systematic analysis, and the willingness to experiment with different approaches when initial strategies proved unsuccessful. Most importantly, they were intellectually satisfying in ways that regular schoolwork had never been. Over the following weeks, Dr. Hendricks provided increasingly sophisticated challenges while carefully observing my problem-solving processes and cognitive development. She documented my approaches to different types of problems, noting patterns in my thinking that suggested exceptional mathematical intuition and logical reasoning capabilities. "Rachel," she said during one of our after-school sessions, "you have a very unusual way of seeing patterns and relationships that most people miss completely. Have you ever thought about what you might want to study when you get to university?" The question surprised me, because university had always seemed like something that happened to other families, not to children whose mothers worked as bookkeepers and whose fathers managed construction crews. Elena and Marcus had emphasized the importance of education, but their own experiences provided no framework for understanding higher education or professional career development. Dr. Hendricks seemed to recognize my uncertainty and spent considerable time explaining how exceptional academic ability could translate into scholarship opportunities and career possibilities that transcended family economic circumstances. She described her own journey from rural Montana to graduate school, emphasizing that intellectual potential was more important than family connections or financial resources. "There are universities that actively seek students like you," she explained, "students who have demonstrated exceptional ability despite challenging circumstances. They provide financial support and academic resources specifically for students who show promise but need assistance to reach their potential." This conversation introduced concepts that were completely foreign to my understanding of how educational systems operated. Dr. Hendricks was describing a world where academic merit could overcome economic disadvantages, where exceptional performance could generate opportunities that existed independently of family wealth or social connections. She began meeting with me twice weekly after school, providing advanced mathematical instruction that went far beyond grade-level curriculum. These sessions were not remedial tutoring but genuine academic mentorship designed to accelerate my intellectual development and prepare me for advanced educational opportunities. The mathematical concepts Dr. Hendricks introduced were challenging enough to require sustained effort and concentration, but accessible enough to build confidence and momentum. She taught me basic algebraic thinking, geometric reasoning, and logical proof structures that most students did not encounter until high school or college. More importantly, she taught me to approach intellectual challenges systematically, breaking complex problems into manageable components, and developing strategies for working through difficulties, rather than becoming frustrated when solutions were not immediately apparent. These metacognitive skills would prove essential throughout my educational and professional development. Dr. Hendricks also recognized that exceptional academic ability required emotional and social support to develop effectively. She helped me understand that being intellectually advanced was not something to hide or apologize for, but rather a responsibility to develop fully and use constructively. "Intelligence is like any other talent," she explained during one of our sessions. "Musicians practice to develop their abilities, athletes train to improve their performance, and intellectually gifted students need appropriate challenges to reach their potential. There is nothing wrong with being smart, and there is everything right with working to become smarter." This perspective was crucial because it addressed my growing awareness that my academic abilities made me different from most of my peers in ways that could create social challenges. Dr. Hendricks helped me understand that intellectual differences were natural variations rather than reasons for self-consciousness or social isolation. After 3 months of intensive work together, Dr. Hendricks requested a meeting with Elena and Marcus to discuss my educational development and recommend specific steps for maximizing my academic potential. She prepared carefully for this conversation, understanding that my parents would need detailed explanations and practical guidance to navigate unfamiliar educational systems. The meeting took place in Dr. Hendricks' classroom on a Thursday evening, when Elena could arrange coverage for her bookkeeping responsibilities, and Marcus could leave his construction site early. Elena had dressed in her most professional attire and brought a notebook to record important information, approaching this conference with the same systematic preparation she brought to all significant family decisions. Dr. Hendricks began by showing Elena and Marcus examples of my work, explaining the advanced nature of the problems I had been solving, and comparing my performance to typical expectations for students several years older. She documented my progress systematically, providing objective evidence of exceptional ability rather than relying on subjective impressions. Rachel has demonstrated mathematical reasoning abilities that place her among the top 1% of students nationally, Dr. Hendricks explained, displaying assessment results and work samples. She approaches problems with sophisticated strategies and shows exceptional persistence when working through complex challenges. Elena listened carefully, asking questions about specific examples and requesting clarification when educational terminology was unfamiliar. Marcus, whose own educational experience had been limited to public high school, was clearly impressed but uncertain about the practical implications of these assessments. Dr. Hendricks then outlined specific recommendations for supporting my continued academic development. She described advanced educational programs available within the school district, explained application processes for specialized schools, and provided information about summer enrichment opportunities designed for academically gifted students. The most important decision you will need to make, Dr. Hendricks said, is whether Rachel should continue in standard grade-level classes or move into more accelerated programs that can provide appropriate intellectual challenges. This question forced Elena and Marcus to confront the reality that my educational needs were becoming more complex and specialized than they had anticipated. Advanced programs would require additional time commitments, transportation arrangements, and navigation of institutional systems that neither parent fully understood. Elena asked practical questions about program requirements, financial costs, and long-term educational pathways. Marcus wanted to understand how advanced programs would affect my social development and peer relationships. Both parents were clearly committed to supporting my academic growth, but needed guidance about making decisions that were outside their personal experience. Dr. Hendricks spent considerable time addressing their concerns, explaining how advanced academic programs operated, and describing support systems available for families who were navigating these opportunities for the first time. She emphasized that intellectual advancement did not require sacrificing social development or family relationships when managed appropriately. More importantly, she helped Elena and Marcus understand that exceptional academic ability created both opportunities and responsibilities that required careful cultivation. Rachel has the potential to pursue virtually any academic or professional path she chooses, Dr. Hendricks explained, but reaching that potential will require sustained effort and appropriate educational support. The conversation continued for over 2 hours, during which Dr. Hendricks provided detailed information about specific programs, application timelines, and preparation strategies. She gave Elena and Marcus comprehensive written materials and offered to continue supporting their decision-making process as they evaluated different options. During the drive home from this meeting, Elena and Marcus discussed the implications of Dr. Hendricks' recommendations and the decisions they would need to make about my educational future. Elena was excited about the opportunities being described but worried about the family adjustments that would be required to support advanced academic programs. Marcus, Elena said as we waited at a traffic light near our neighborhood, I never imagined that Rachel could have opportunities like these. In El Salvador, smart children from poor families just worked harder in regular schools. There were no special programs or university scholarships. Marcus nodded thoughtfully, understanding that they were being asked to make decisions about educational pathways that neither of them had ever experienced personally. We need to learn about these programs so we can help Rachel make good choices, he replied. Dr. Hendricks seems to know what she is talking about, and she believes Rachel has real potential. Over the following weeks, Elena and Marcus researched the educational options Dr. Hendricks had described, visiting schools, attending information sessions, and speaking with other parents whose children participated in advanced academic programs. This process was challenging because it required them to navigate institutional systems and social environments that were unfamiliar and sometimes intimidating. Elena approached this research with characteristic determination and systematic methodology. She created files for each program, documented admission requirements and deadlines, and developed comparison charts that allowed the family to evaluate different options objectively. She also arranged for translation assistance when necessary, and sought advice from other immigrant families who had successfully navigated similar educational decisions. The research process revealed that several excellent advanced programs were available, each with different strengths and requirements. The district's highly capable program could provide accelerated academics while maintaining my connections to neighborhood friends and familiar teachers. A specialized mathematics and science academy offered more intensive intellectual challenges but would require a significant daily commute. Several private schools had expressed interest in providing scholarship support, but would involve social environments that might be difficult for our family to navigate. After careful consideration and multiple family discussions, Elena and Marcus decided to apply for the district's highly capable program, while also exploring the specialized academy as a potential option for middle school. This decision balanced academic advancement with practical considerations about transportation, family time, and social adjustment. Dr. Hendricks supported this decision and helped prepare me for the application and assessment processes required for advanced program admission. She provided additional mathematical instruction, helped me develop test-taking strategies, and offered reassurance about the transition to more challenging academic environments. Most importantly, Dr. Hendricks taught me to view intellectual challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to overcome. "Rachel," she said during one of our final tutoring sessions, "you are going to encounter problems that are difficult enough to require real effort and sustained thinking. That is not a sign that you are not smart enough. That is a sign that you are finally getting problems that are worth your intelligence." The application process for advanced programs required extensive documentation of academic ability, including standardized test scores, teacher recommendations, and examples of exceptional work. Dr. Hendricks helped coordinate these requirements, ensuring that my application materials accurately represented my capabilities and potential. The testing sessions were more comprehensive than anything I had previously experienced, involving multiple assessments of mathematical reasoning, verbal ability, and creative problem-solving skills. Dr. Hendricks had prepared me thoroughly for these evaluations, so I approached them with confidence rather than anxiety. When the acceptance letters arrived in early spring, confirming admission to the highly capable program and waitlist status for the specialized academy, Elena cried with pride and relief. Dr. Hendricks had been correct about my academic potential, and the doors she had helped open would provide educational opportunities that could transform my entire future. The evening we received the acceptance notification, Dr. Hendricks called to congratulate our family and offer final advice about maximizing the opportunities these programs would provide. "Rachel," she said, "you have worked very hard to earn these opportunities, and your parents have made significant sacrifices to support your education. Remember that academic ability is a gift that comes with the responsibility to develop it fully and use it to help others." This conversation established a framework for understanding academic achievement that emphasized service and responsibility rather than personal advancement alone. Dr. Hendricks was teaching me that exceptional ability created obligations to contribute positively to society rather than simply pursuing individual success. The summer before beginning the highly capable program, Dr. Hendricks continued meeting with me weekly to provide advanced instruction and prepare me for the increased academic rigor I would encounter. These sessions focused on developing independent learning skills, time management strategies, and confidence in approaching unfamiliar intellectual challenges. She also helped me understand the social dynamics of advanced academic programs, explaining how to build relationships with peers who shared my intellectual interests, while maintaining friendships with neighborhood children who had different academic abilities. This guidance would prove essential as I navigated increasingly complex social environments throughout my educational journey. Dr. Hendricks' mentorship during this crucial period established patterns of intellectual curiosity, systematic problem-solving, and academic confidence that would sustain me through every subsequent educational and professional challenge. More importantly, she taught me that exceptional ability was not something to hide or take for granted, but rather a responsibility to develop fully and use constructively throughout my life. The opportunity that would fundamentally reshape my educational trajectory arrived through an unexpected phone call on a rainy Thursday afternoon in late April. Dr. Hendricks contacted Elena at her bookkeeping office with news that the Washington State Mathematics Foundation had selected me for their inaugural Young Scholars Summer Institute, a 6-week intensive program designed for exceptionally gifted middle school students from across the Pacific Northwest. This program represented far more than advanced academic instruction. The institute brought together 40 students who had demonstrated extraordinary mathematical potential, providing university-level coursework, research opportunities, and mentorship from mathematics professors at the University of Washington. Participants would live in supervised dormitories, attend lectures by renowned mathematicians, and complete independent research projects that could potentially be published in academic journals. The selection criteria had been rigorous. Students were required to score in the top 1% nationally on standardized mathematics assessments, demonstrate exceptional problem-solving abilities through portfolio submissions, and receive nominations from educators who could attest to their intellectual maturity and academic commitment. Only 2 students from the entire Tacoma School District had been selected, and I was the youngest participant chosen statewide. Dr. Hendricks explained the program's significance during an emergency family meeting she requested for that same evening. "Rachel," she said, settling into our living room with a folder of program materials, "this opportunity could change your entire educational pathway. The students who participate in programs like this often go on to attend the most prestigious universities in the country." The program description was both thrilling and overwhelming. Participants would study advanced topics including linear algebra, discrete mathematics, and mathematical modeling while working alongside graduate students and faculty researchers. The curriculum was designed to introduce exceptional students to university-level academic work while providing intensive mentorship and career guidance. However, the practical requirements for participation presented significant challenges for our family. The program cost was substantial, covering dormitory housing, meals, materials, and instructional fees. While partial scholarships were available for students demonstrating financial need, families were expected to contribute according to their economic capacity, and our contribution requirement was still more than Elena and Marcus had ever spent on anything except basic housing costs. The logistics were equally complex. The program was held at the University of Washington campus in Seattle, requiring participants to live away from home for 6 weeks during the summer. I would be 13 years old, had never spent more than 2 nights away from my family, and would be living in an environment with students who came from dramatically different social and economic backgrounds. Elena's initial reaction combined pride in my selection with anxiety about the practical challenges of participation. "Misha," she said after Dr. Hendricks had explained the program requirements, "this is a great honor, but we need to understand what we are committing to as a family." Marcus approached the decision with his characteristic methodical analysis, creating spreadsheets to calculate the financial impact and researching transportation options for visiting me during the program. The cost would require using most of the emergency savings they had accumulated over 3 years of careful budgeting, but he believed the educational opportunity justified the financial sacrifice. The application process for financial assistance required extensive documentation of our family's income, expenses, and assets. Elena spent several evenings completing forms that required detailed explanations of our economic circumstances, a process that was both necessary and somewhat humiliating for parents who had worked hard to achieve financial stability. The forms asked questions about parental education levels, family assets, and long-term financial planning that highlighted the differences between our background and the backgrounds of families who typically participated in such programs. Elena answered these questions honestly while feeling acutely aware that our circumstances marked us as different from the program's typical demographic. Dr. Hendricks assisted with the application process, providing detailed recommendation letters and helping Elena understand the technical requirements for financial documentation. She also connected our family with the program coordinator, Dr. Sarah Chen, who specialized in supporting first-generation college students and families navigating advanced academic opportunities for the first time. Dr. Chen scheduled a phone conference with Elena and Marcus to discuss the program's expectations and address their concerns about my participation. Her approach was professional but warm, demonstrating genuine understanding of the challenges facing families who lacked experience with elite educational opportunities. Mr. and Mrs. Montenegro, Dr. Chen said during our conference call, Rachel's mathematical abilities are truly exceptional, and this program is specifically designed to nurture students like her who show extraordinary potential. We work very carefully to ensure that all participants feel supported and successful, regardless of their family background or previous experience with university environments. She explained the comprehensive support systems built into the program, including academic tutoring, social activities designed to help students build friendships, and regular communication with families to ensure participants were adjusting successfully. Most importantly, she emphasized that the program actively recruited students from diverse backgrounds because intellectual diversity strengthened the overall learning environment. The financial assistance application was approved within 2 weeks, reducing our required contribution to an amount that Elena and Marcus could manage through careful budgeting and additional work hours. The scholarship covered nearly 70% of the program costs, making participation financially feasible while still requiring genuine sacrifice from our family. Elena's work schedule needed significant adjustment to accommodate my absence and the additional income required to cover program expenses. She arranged to work extended hours during the spring months leading up to the program, taking on additional bookkeeping clients and working weekend assignments that normally would have been family time. Marcus similarly adjusted his construction schedule, accepting overtime opportunities and additional projects that would generate the income needed to support my participation. Both parents approached these sacrifices with determination rather than resentment, understanding that educational opportunities of this caliber rarely presented themselves to families in our circumstances. The preparation phase required learning about academic and social expectations that were completely outside our family's previous experience. The program provided detailed guidelines about appropriate clothing for university settings, recommended reading lists for background preparation, and suggestions for developing independent living skills that would be essential during the residential component. Elena researched campus life, university culture, and social dynamics that I might encounter as a 13-year-old living alongside 15- and 16-year-old students who came from more privileged backgrounds. She wanted to prepare me for social situations while ensuring that I maintained confidence in my own abilities and worth. The shopping process for program-appropriate clothing and supplies required careful research and budgeting. Elena visited multiple stores to find professional-looking clothes that were suitable for university settings but affordable enough to fit within our limited budget. She approached this task with the same systematic attention she brought to all family financial decisions. Dr. Hendricks continued providing academic preparation throughout the spring semester, introducing mathematical concepts that would be covered in the program, and helping me develop the independent study skills that would be essential for success in the university environment. These sessions focused on building confidence with challenging material while teaching me to seek help appropriately when concepts were difficult to grasp initially. The emotional preparation was equally important. Elena and Marcus needed to prepare themselves for sending their 13-year-old daughter to live independently for 6 weeks, while I needed to develop confidence about living away from home and navigating social environments that would be dramatically different from my familiar neighborhood and school settings. Family discussions during this preparation period addressed practical concerns about homesickness, academic pressure, and social integration, while emphasizing the long-term educational benefits that justified these short-term challenges. Elena and Marcus consistently reinforced their confidence in my abilities, while acknowledging that the experience would be demanding for our entire family. The week before departure, Elena and Marcus drove me to the University of Washington campus for an orientation session designed to familiarize participants and families with the residential facilities, academic buildings, and support resources available during the program. This visit was crucial for helping all of us understand the environment where I would be living and studying. The campus was magnificent and intimidating in equal measure. The Gothic Revival architecture, sprawling green spaces, and obvious institutional prestige created an atmosphere that was both inspiring and overwhelming for a working-class family from Tacoma. Elena and Marcus walked through the dormitories and academic buildings with expressions that combined pride in my achievement with anxiety about whether I would be able to thrive in such an unfamiliar environment. During the orientation session, we met other families whose children would be participating in the program. The social dynamics were immediately apparent. Most of the other parents were university graduates themselves, many holding advanced degrees and professional positions that provided them with cultural familiarity with academic institutions. They discussed the program as one element in comprehensive educational strategies that included private tutoring, specialized summer programs, and long-term planning for elite university admission. Elena listened carefully to these conversations while taking detailed notes about academic resources and support systems, but I could see her growing awareness of the cultural differences between our family and the families surrounding us. She maintained her composure and engaged appropriately in discussions, but the strain of navigating unfamiliar social territory was evident. The orientation concluded with individual meetings between families and program staff members, who would be responsible for supervising participants throughout the 6-week session. Our meeting was with Dr. James Morrison, a mathematics professor who served as the program's academic director and had extensive experience working with intellectually gifted students from diverse backgrounds. Dr. Morrison reviewed my academic record and assessment scores while discussing the specific coursework I would be completing during the program. He expressed confidence in my ability to succeed academically, while acknowledging that the social adjustment might require additional attention and support. "Rachel," he said, addressing me directly while including Elena and Marcus in the conversation, "you have demonstrated exceptional mathematical abilities, and this program will provide you with academic challenges that are worthy of your talents. The social environment will be different from what you are accustomed to, but that difference will ultimately strengthen your preparation for future educational opportunities." He explained the mentorship component of the program, which would pair me with a graduate student who specialized in supporting younger participants as they adjusted to university-level academic work and residential living. This mentorship was designed to provide both academic support and social guidance throughout the program duration. The drive home from orientation was subdued, as Elena, Marcus, and I processed the magnitude of the opportunity and the challenges that lay ahead. Elena was clearly proud of my selection, but anxious about the social and academic pressures I would face. Marcus was impressed by the program's resources but concerned about whether our family background had adequately prepared me for success in such a competitive environment. That evening, as Elena helped me organize the supplies and clothing we had purchased for the program, she shared advice that would guide my approach to challenges throughout the remainder of my educational journey. "Mija," she said as we folded clothes and arranged materials in the suitcase we had borrowed from a neighbor, "you are going to be surrounded by students who have had advantages that we could not provide. Some of them may have tutors, enrichment programs, and family support that we cannot match. But remember that you earned this opportunity through your own intelligence and hard work." She paused in her packing, looking directly at me with the kind of serious expression that indicated she was sharing something crucial. "Do not let anyone make you feel like you do not belong there. You were selected because you have something special that cannot be bought or inherited. Work hard, learn everything you can, and remember that your family believes in you completely." This conversation established a framework for approaching competitive academic environments that emphasized personal merit over inherited advantages, while acknowledging the reality of social and economic differences that would be part of my educational experience. Elena was teaching me to maintain confidence in my own worth while working systematically to overcome any disadvantages created by our family's circumstances. The night before departure, Elena and Marcus gave me a card they had written together, expressing their pride in my achievement and their confidence in my ability to succeed in this challenging environment. The card included practical advice about managing homesickness, seeking help when needed, and maintaining perspective about temporary difficulties. More importantly, the card included their promise to support my educational goals regardless of the sacrifices required, and their assurance that my academic success would benefit our entire family by creating opportunities that had never been available to previous generations. Elena and Marcus were making it clear that my education was a family investment rather than an individual pursuit, and that my eventual success would validate their belief in the transformative power of education and hard work. The morning of departure arrived with the kind of Pacific Northwest drizzle that made the University of Washington campus appear both mysterious and imposing through the windshield of Marcus's construction truck. Elena had insisted on accompanying me to ensure proper check-in procedures, despite the lost wages this decision represented. She carried herself with the dignified composure she reserved for important family occasions, wearing her most professional attire and maintaining the calm determination that had sustained our family through every significant transition. The dormitory assigned to program participants was McMahon Hall, a modern residential facility that housed undergraduate students during the regular academic year. The building's contemporary architecture and institutional efficiency created an atmosphere that was simultaneously welcoming and intimidating for someone whose previous overnight experiences had been limited to relatives' homes and school camping trips. The check-in process revealed the demographic composition of the Young Scholars program in ways that orientation sessions had not fully conveyed. Families arrived in vehicles that ranged from luxury sedans to practical minivans, but our construction truck was the only work vehicle in the parking area. Most parents wore clothing that suggested professional careers and economic comfort, while their conversations referenced previous summer programs, university connections, and educational planning strategies that assumed substantial financial resources. Elena observed these dynamics with careful attention while maintaining appropriate social engagement with other families. She had prepared conversation topics and questions that demonstrated her genuine interest in my educational development without revealing her unfamiliarity with elite academic environments. Her approach was professional and thoughtful, though I could sense her acute awareness of the cultural differences surrounding us. My assigned roommate was Jennifer Chang, a 15-year-old from Bellevue, whose parents were both technology executives and whose academic preparation included private tutoring, competitive mathematics programs, and summer enrichment experiences that had been ongoing since elementary school. Jennifer's side of our shared room was equipped with organizational systems, technological devices, and personal items that reflected both economic privilege and systematic preparation for academic competition. Jennifer herself was pleasant and intellectually curious, approaching our initial conversation with genuine interest rather than condescension. However, her casual references to previous summer programs, international travel experiences, and family educational resources highlighted the vast differences in our academic preparation and family circumstances. "Where did you attend summer programs before this?" Jennifer asked as we arranged our belongings in the dormitory room, a question that assumed participation in such programs was standard rather than exceptional. "This is my first academic summer program," I replied honestly, recognizing that this admission marked me as different from the typical participant demographic. Jennifer's expression shifted slightly as she processed this information, not with judgment but with surprise that suggested she had never encountered a peer who lacked extensive enrichment experiences. "Well, you must be really exceptional to get selected without previous program experience," she said, which was intended as encouragement but emphasized my outsider status. The first formal program session was an opening convocation held in the university's primary lecture hall, where participants and families gathered to hear presentations from faculty members, program administrators, and distinguished alumni, who described the academic challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The speakers emphasized the prestigious nature of the program and the exceptional achievements of previous participants who had gone on to attend elite universities and pursue distinguished careers in mathematics and related fields. Elena listened to these presentations with visible pride in my selection, while taking careful notes about academic expectations and support resources. She asked thoughtful questions during the family Q&A session, demonstrating her commitment to understanding the program thoroughly, despite her unfamiliarity with university culture and academic research terminology. The formal farewell between families and participants took place in the dormitory lobby after the convocation concluded. Elena's goodbye was both emotional and practical, including final reminders about maintaining regular communication, seeking help when needed, and representing our family with dignity and determination. She had written her work phone number and Marcus's contact information on multiple cards, ensuring that I could reach them under any circumstances. Mija, Elena said as she prepared to leave. Remember that you earned your place here through your own abilities. Work hard, learn everything you can, and make us proud. Her voice carried the weight of years of sacrifice, and the hope that this opportunity would justify every challenge our family had overcome to make my participation possible. The first week of the program was academically exhilarating and socially overwhelming in equal measure. The coursework was genuinely challenging, introducing mathematical concepts that required sustained intellectual effort and systematic problem-solving approaches. Professor Morrison's linear algebra course in particular demanded analytical thinking that pushed my cognitive abilities while remaining accessible through careful instruction and comprehensive support materials. However, the social dynamics of the program proved more challenging than the academic content. Casual conversations among participants regularly referenced experiences, resources, and cultural knowledge that were completely outside my background. Students discussed private school teachers, professional tutoring relationships, and family connections to university faculty with the kind of ease that suggested these advantages were normal rather than exceptional. The dining hall conversations were particularly revealing of social and economic differences among participants. Students compared notes about previous summer programs, discussed plans for high school selection that assumed multiple viable options, and shared stories about family educational travel that treated international experiences as routine rather than extraordinary. I learned to navigate these conversations by asking thoughtful questions and demonstrating genuine interest in others' experiences, rather than attempting to contribute comparable stories from my own background. This strategy allowed me to build social connections while avoiding the discomfort of highlighting my different circumstances. My assigned graduate student mentor was David Kim, a doctoral candidate in applied mathematics who specialized in working with younger students transitioning to university-level academic work. David's background included experience as a first-generation college student, which provided him with genuine understanding of the challenges facing participants who lacked family familiarity with higher education systems. David approached our mentoring relationship with both academic and social support, recognizing that intellectual ability needed to be complemented by confidence and practical skills for navigating unfamiliar institutional environments. Our weekly meetings address not only mathematical concepts, but also study strategies, time management techniques, and approaches for building relationships with faculty members and peers. Rachel, David said during our first formal meeting, I can see from your work that you have exceptional mathematical intuition and problem-solving abilities. The challenge for students like us is learning to succeed in environments where other people have had advantages we didn't experience growing up. His acknowledgement of shared experiences with educational and social challenges was both validating and instructive. David provided practical guidance about academic expectations while helping me understand that success in elite educational environments required both intellectual ability and strategic navigation of social and institutional systems. The academic content of the program was structured to introduce university-level mathematical thinking while providing comprehensive support for students making the transition from high school to college-level work. Professor Morrison's approach combined rigorous intellectual challenges with patient instruction that acknowledged participants' varying levels of preparation and experience. The linear algebra coursework introduced concepts that would later prove essential for understanding computational algorithms and data analysis, though the connections to practical applications were not yet apparent. The abstract nature of mathematical proofs and theoretical frameworks required developing new cognitive skills that complemented but differed from the problem-solving abilities I had demonstrated in elementary and middle school mathematics. Professor Chen's discrete mathematics course provided introduction to logical structures and computational thinking that would become foundational for my eventual interest in computer programming. The systematic approach to analyzing problems, developing algorithmic solutions, and verifying logical consistency created intellectual frameworks that would prove invaluable throughout my subsequent academic and professional development. The research component of the program paired participants with faculty members working on current mathematical investigations. My assignment involved analyzing patterns in prime number distributions under the supervision of Dr. Elena Vasquez, an assistant professor whose research focused on number theory applications in cryptography and computer security. Dr. Vasquez's research required computational analysis that introduced me to basic programming concepts for the first time. The mathematical problems we investigated could only be solved through systematic computer-based calculations that required learning elementary coding skills and algorithmic thinking approaches. These initial programming experiences were revelatory in ways that would not become fully apparent for several years. The logical structure of computer code, the systematic approach to breaking complex problems into manageable components, and the satisfaction of creating functional solutions to challenging problems appealed to cognitive preferences that I had not previously recognized in myself. The social challenges of the program gradually diminished as I developed genuine friendships with peers who appreciated intellectual curiosity and academic dedication rather than focusing primarily on background differences. Jennifer proved to be a thoughtful roommate who was genuinely interested in learning about different perspectives and experiences, while students like Michael Chen and Sarah Rodriguez became study partners whose collaborative approaches enhanced everyone's learning. The residential component of the program provided independence and responsibility that were both exciting and occasionally overwhelming for someone accustomed to close family oversight and support. Managing daily schedules, academic obligations, and social relationships without parental guidance required developing organizational skills and decision-making confidence that would prove essential throughout my subsequent educational journey. The weekly phone calls with Elena and Marcus became crucial touchstones that provided emotional support while allowing me to process the experiences and challenges of university life. Elena's questions were always practical and supportive, focusing on my academic progress, social adjustment, and overall well-being, rather than demanding detailed reports that might create additional pressure. "How are your classes, Mija?" Elena would ask during our Sunday evening conversations. "Are you learning interesting things, and are the teachers helpful when you have questions?" These conversations allowed me to share both successes and difficulties, while receiving encouragement and practical advice from parents who understood my academic goals, even when the specific content was outside their personal experience. Elena and Marcus consistently reinforced their pride in my achievements, while emphasizing that temporary challenges were normal parts of academic growth, rather than indicators of inadequate preparation. The midpoint evaluation of my program performance included meetings with faculty members, assessment of research progress, and conferences with Dr. Morrison about my academic development and future educational planning. These evaluations confirmed that I was succeeding academically while identifying areas where additional support or challenge would enhance my learning experience. Dr. Morrison's assessment was particularly encouraging regarding my mathematical reasoning abilities and research potential. "Rachel demonstrates exceptional analytical thinking and problem-solving persistence," he wrote in his formal evaluation. "She approaches challenging problems with systematic strategies and shows remarkable ability to learn from feedback and adjust her approaches accordingly." The research component evaluation from Dr. Vasquez emphasized my aptitude for computational work and algorithmic thinking. "Rachel has shown genuine enthusiasm for the programming aspects of our number theory research," she noted. "Her ability to translate mathematical concepts into computational solutions suggests strong potential for future work at the intersection of mathematics and computer science." These assessments provided external validation of abilities and interests that I was still developing and understanding myself. The faculty feedback helped me recognize cognitive strengths and academic preferences that would become crucial for making informed decisions about high school coursework, college preparation, and eventual career direction. The final weeks of the program included preparation for presenting research findings to an audience that included faculty members, graduate students, and families of participants. This presentation requirement was designed to develop communication skills while providing opportunities to demonstrate the intellectual growth that had occurred throughout the 6-week intensive experience. My research presentation focused on computational analysis of prime number patterns and included both mathematical findings and discussion of the programming techniques used to generate and verify results. The preparation process required synthesizing complex technical content into explanations that would be accessible to audience members with varying levels of mathematical background. The presentation itself was both nerve-wracking and satisfying, representing the culmination of 6 weeks of intensive academic work while demonstrating capabilities that I had not possessed at the beginning of the program. Elena and Marcus attended the presentation session, driving to Seattle to witness my academic achievement and meet the faculty members who had been instrumental in my development. Elena's pride was evident as she listened to my presentation and observed the respect with which faculty members and peers responded to my work. For a woman who had sacrificed work hours and financial security to support my participation, seeing tangible evidence of academic growth and recognition provided validation that these investments had been worthwhile. The program conclusion included individual meetings with Dr. Morrison to discuss future educational planning and recommendations for high school coursework that would build on the mathematical and analytical skills developed during the Summer Institute. These conversations addressed both immediate decisions about academic scheduling and longer-term considerations about college preparation and career exploration. Dr. Morrison's recommendations included accelerated mathematics coursework, participation in competitive academic programs, and continued development of the programming skills that had emerged as a particular strength during my research work. He also provided specific guidance about maintaining academic momentum while avoiding the burnout that sometimes affected highly capable students who took on excessive academic loads. The drive home to Tacoma provided opportunity for Elena, Marcus, and me to process the transformative experience and discuss how the knowledge and skills gained would influence my subsequent educational decisions. Elena asked detailed questions about the mathematical concepts I had learned, the research process, and the social dynamics of living independently in a university environment. Marcus was particularly interested in the practical skills I had developed, including time management, independent problem solving, and the confidence to seek help when encountering unfamiliar challenges. His construction background gave him appreciation for systematic approaches to complex projects, and he recognized that the academic skills I had developed paralleled the methodical thinking required for successful professional work. The program had provided far more than advanced mathematical instruction. The experience had introduced me to university culture, research methodology, computational thinking, and the social dynamics of competitive academic environments. Most importantly, it had demonstrated that I could succeed at the highest levels of academic challenge when provided with appropriate support and opportunity. The connections between mathematical problem solving and computer programming that I had discovered during Dr. Vasquez's research project would prove to be the foundation for my eventual career path, though these connections would not become fully apparent for several more years. The systematic thinking, logical analysis, and algorithmic approaches that the program had developed would become essential tools for creating the software innovations that would eventually define my professional success. The transition from the supportive environment of the Young Scholars Summer Institute to the competitive landscape of high school academic programs revealed the stark differences between exceptional ability and systematic preparation that had been developing over years of privileged educational experiences. When I entered the 9th grade at Science and Technology Academy, a specialized STEM-focused public school in Bellevue, I discovered that raw intellectual talent required substantial augmentation to compete effectively with peers who had been groomed for academic excellence since early childhood. Science and Technology Academy represented the pinnacle of public secondary education in the Seattle metropolitan area, with admission standards that rivaled elite private institutions and academic expectations that prepared students for direct entry into prestigious university programs. The student body consisted of approximately 400 carefully selected individuals who had demonstrated exceptional ability in mathematics, science, and technological applications through rigorous testing and portfolio evaluation processes. The school's physical facilities reflected its commitment to providing university preparatory educational experiences. The mathematics classrooms were equipped with advanced computational software and hardware that allowed students to explore complex theoretical concepts through practical application. The computer science laboratories contained professional-grade development environments and networking systems that enabled students to work on projects that paralleled those undertaken by university researchers and industry professionals. The faculty members possessed advanced degrees from research universities and professional experience in their respective fields that provided students with authentic exposure to cutting-edge developments in science and technology. The curriculum was designed to accelerate students through standard secondary education requirements while introducing advanced topics that would provide seamless transitions to rigorous university programs. However, the competitive environment at Science and Technology Academy was unlike anything I had previously experienced. My fellow students represented the most academically accomplished individuals from school districts throughout the region, and many had been participating in advanced educational programs, competitive academic contests, and specialized enrichment opportunities for years before arriving at the academy. During my first week of classes, I encountered the reality of competing with peers whose preparation extended far beyond natural ability or strong work ethics. My advanced placement calculus class included students who had been taking university-level mathematics courses since middle school, whose parents had hired professional tutors to provide individualized instruction, and who participated in mathematical competitions that required sophisticated problem-solving strategies I had never encountered. The computer science program presented even greater challenges regarding preparation disparities. While my summer institute experience had provided introduction to basic programming concepts, many of my classmates had been developing software applications, participating in coding competitions, and working on independent technology projects for several years. Their familiarity with programming languages, development methodologies, and computational algorithms was both impressive and intimidating. Jennifer Walsh, who became my closest friend during freshman year, exemplified the kind of comprehensive preparation that characterized many academy students. Her parents, both software engineers at Microsoft, had provided her with professional quality development tools, private instruction in multiple programming languages, and opportunities to participate in industry conferences and networking events since she was 12 years old. Jennifer approached computer science coursework with confidence and technical vocabulary that reflected years of immersion in professional technology environments. The social dynamics of the academy reinforced academic hierarchies based on preparation and resources rather than natural ability alone. Students formed study groups and collaboration networks that often reflected existing relationships from previous programs, summer institutes, and shared educational experiences. These informal academic communities provided advantages that extended beyond classroom instruction, including access to advanced resources, peer tutoring, and strategic information about educational opportunities. My initial response to these competitive pressures was to increase study time and effort intensity, assuming that harder work would compensate for preparation gaps and resource disparities. I spent evenings and weekends attempting to master programming concepts that my peers had been developing for years, while simultaneously maintaining excellence in traditional academic subjects that required substantial time commitments. This approach proved both exhausting and ineffective. The sheer volume of material I needed to master exceeded what could be accomplished through individual effort alone, particularly when competing with students who had access to professional instruction, expensive resources, and family guidance from parents who understood technology industries and academic systems. The first quarter grades provided objective evidence of the challenges I was facing. While my performance in mathematics and science courses remained excellent, my computer science grades reflected the struggle to master complex technical concepts without adequate foundational preparation. Dr. Amanda Foster, my computer science instructor, recognized that my difficulties stemmed from preparation gaps rather than inadequate ability. Dr. Foster requested a private meeting to discuss my academic performance and develop strategies for addressing the preparation disparities that were affecting my success in her course. She had extensive experience working with gifted students from diverse backgrounds and understood the challenges facing academically talented individuals who lacked access to specialized resources and programs. Rachel, Dr. Foster said during our meeting in her office, which was filled with computer equipment and technical references that reflected her professional background in software development, "Your analytical thinking and problem-solving approaches are exceptional, but you are trying to compete with students who have had years of specialized preparation that you have not had access to." She explained that academic competition at elite institutions required strategic approaches that balanced individual effort with systematic skill development and resource utilization. Students who succeeded at the highest levels learn to identify their strengths, address their weaknesses efficiently, and leverage available resources to accelerate their development. Dr. Foster's analysis of my computer science work revealed that my mathematical background provided advantages in understanding algorithmic logic and computational theory, but that my lack of practical programming experience created barriers to translating theoretical understanding into functional code development. She recommended a structured approach to building programming skills that would leverage my mathematical strengths while addressing practical deficiencies. The intervention plan Dr. Foster developed included after-school tutoring sessions with advanced students who could provide peer instruction in programming fundamentals, access to online resources that offered systematic skill development, and modified assignment expectations that allowed me to demonstrate understanding while building practical capabilities gradually. More importantly, Dr. Foster introduced me to the concept of leveraging individual strengths to overcome competitive disadvantages. Rather than attempting to match my peers in all areas simultaneously, she encouraged me to identify the aspects of computer science, where my mathematical background provided natural advantages, and to build expertise in those areas, while gradually developing other necessary skills. This strategic approach proved transformative for my academic development and competitive positioning. My mathematical training provided exceptional advantages in understanding algorithm design, computational complexity analysis, and theoretical computer science concepts that many students with strong programming skills found challenging. By focusing initial efforts on these strength areas, I could demonstrate exceptional performance while building confidence and establishing academic credibility. The algorithm design coursework became my first area of genuine competitive advantage. The mathematical problem-solving approaches I had developed through years of advanced instruction translated directly to creating efficient computational solutions for complex problems. While other students relied primarily on programming experience and trial-and-error approaches, I could analyze problems systematically and develop optimal solutions through mathematical reasoning. Dr. Foster recognized this strength and provided opportunities for me to tackle increasingly sophisticated algorithmic challenges that showcased my analytical capabilities. She recommended me for participation in regional programming competitions that emphasized problem-solving skills rather than implementation speed, environments where mathematical reasoning provided competitive advantages over pure programming experience. The first programming competition I attended was the Pacific Northwest Regional Computing Contest, held at the University of Washington campus where I had participated in the Summer Mathematics Institute. The competition format required teams of 3 students to solve complex computational problems within strict time constraints, emphasizing both individual problem-solving ability and collaborative efficiency. My teammates were Jennifer Walsh and Marcus Kim, both experienced programmers whose technical skills complemented my mathematical problem-solving strengths. Jennifer handled implementation tasks that required detailed programming knowledge, Marcus managed project coordination and testing procedures, and I focused on analyzing problems and developing algorithmic solutions that my teammates could implement efficiently. This collaborative approach proved remarkably effective. Our team placed 3rd in the regional competition, qualifying for national-level contests and establishing my reputation as a valuable team member despite my limited programming experience. The success demonstrated that mathematical reasoning could provide competitive advantages in technology environments when properly leveraged and supported by collaborative partnerships. The recognition from the programming competition success created opportunities for advanced coursework and independent study projects that accelerated my technical development. Dr. Foster recommended me for enrollment in university-level computer science courses offered through dual enrollment programs, providing access to instruction and resources that exceeded what was available through high school coursework alone. The university courses introduced me to software engineering principles, database management systems, and artificial intelligence concepts that would become foundational for my eventual professional specialization. The computational thinking frameworks and systematic development methodologies I learned through these courses provided intellectual tools that complemented my mathematical background while expanding my technical capabilities substantially. However, the most significant development during this period was my growing understanding of how mathematical insights could be applied to create practical software solutions that addressed real-world problems. The theoretical concepts I had mastered during advanced mathematics coursework became tools for developing innovative approaches to data analysis, pattern recognition, and automated decision-making systems. My first independent software project emerged from a practical problem I observed in Elena's bookkeeping work. She was managing financial records for several small businesses using spreadsheet applications that required extensive manual data entry and calculation procedures. The repetitive nature of these tasks suggested opportunities for automation that could save time while reducing errors and improving accuracy. Working with Dr. Foster as my supervising instructor, I developed a specialized accounting application that automated routine bookkeeping procedures while providing enhanced analytical capabilities for small business financial management. The project required integrating mathematical algorithms for financial calculations with database management systems for record keeping and user interface design for practical usability. The development process was both challenging and revelatory. Creating functional software that solved real problems required combining theoretical knowledge with practical implementation skills, systematic testing procedures, and user experience considerations that extended far beyond pure technical competency. The project provided comprehensive exposure to professional software development practices while demonstrating the potential for technology innovation to create genuine value. Elena's reaction to the accounting application was enthusiastic and practical. The software reduced her data entry time by approximately 60% while providing analytical features that helped her clients understand their financial patterns and make better business decisions. More importantly, her feedback provided insights about user needs and practical requirements that shaped my understanding of effective software design principles. The success of the accounting application led to additional independent projects that expanded my technical capabilities while building a portfolio of practical software solutions. I developed a scheduling optimization system for Marcus's construction business, a client management database for a local medical practice, and an inventory tracking application for a small retail operation. These projects provided opportunities to explore different aspects of software development while building expertise in areas that would become central to my eventual professional specialization. Database design, user interface development, system optimization, and integration challenges became familiar problems that I could approach with growing confidence and technical sophistication. The academic recognition that resulted from these software development projects included recommendations for advanced placement in university computer science programs, scholarships for technology-focused summer institutes, and invitations to participate in competitive programming contests at increasingly prestigious levels. Dr. Foster's mentorship had transformed my competitive disadvantages into distinctive strengths that set me apart from peers with more conventional preparation backgrounds. By the end of my sophomore year, I had established myself as one of the top computer science students at Science and Technology Academy, despite starting with significant preparation disadvantages compared to many classmates. The strategic approach to leveraging mathematical strengths while systematically building programming skills had proven more effective than attempting to compete directly with students who had years of specialized technical preparation. The confidence and technical capabilities I developed during this period provided the foundation for pursuing increasingly ambitious projects and academic opportunities. More importantly, the experience of overcoming competitive disadvantages through strategic thinking and systematic effort established patterns of resilience and innovation that would prove essential throughout my subsequent educational and professional development. The mathematical problem-solving abilities that had initially seemed inadequate for technology competition had become distinctive advantages that enabled me to approach software development challenges with analytical rigor and creative insight that many technically proficient programmers lacked. The integration of mathematical reasoning with practical programming skills created a unique competitive profile that would become increasingly valuable as I advanced to more sophisticated educational and professional environments. The relationships and collaborative skills I developed while working to overcome initial competitive disadvantages also provided essential preparation for future leadership roles and entrepreneurial ventures. Learning to identify complementary strengths in teammates, coordinate complex projects effectively, and leverage individual capabilities to achieve collective success became fundamental skills that would prove crucial when I eventually needed to build and manage professional development teams. The setback that would test every foundation of confidence and determination I had built during my first 2 years at Science and Technology Academy arrived through a rejection letter that fundamentally challenged my understanding of academic merit and competitive positioning. During the spring of my sophomore year, I had applied for the prestigious Microsoft High School Internship Program, a highly selective opportunity that provided exceptional students with professional software development experience and potential pathways to university scholarships and future employment opportunities. The Microsoft internship represented far more than a summer work experience. The program accepted only 12 students nationwide each year, providing them with mentorship from senior software engineers, exposure to cutting-edge technology projects, and comprehensive training in professional development methodologies that typically required years of university education to access. Previous participants had received full scholarships to elite universities and direct employment offers from major technology companies. My application had been comprehensive and strategically prepared with extensive guidance from Dr. Foster, who had connections within the technology industry and understood the selection criteria for competitive programs. The materials included detailed documentation of my independent software projects, academic transcripts that demonstrated exceptional performance in advanced mathematics and computer science coursework, and recommendation letters from faculty members who could attest to my technical capabilities and analytical problem-solving skills. The portfolio component of my application showcased the practical software solutions I had developed for local businesses, including the accounting automation system that had significantly improved efficiency for Elena's bookkeeping clients, and the scheduling optimization application that had enhanced productivity for Marcus's construction operations. These projects demonstrated not only technical competency but also the ability to identify real-world problems and create valuable solutions through systematic software development approaches. Dr. Foster had reviewed my application materials multiple times, providing detailed feedback and suggestions for improvement, while expressing confidence that my qualifications were competitive with the strongest candidates nationally. She had emphasized that my mathematical background and practical software development experience created a distinctive profile that would appeal to program administrators seeking students with exceptional analytical capabilities and entrepreneurial thinking. The interview process had been conducted through video conferencing with a panel of Microsoft engineers and program administrators who asked detailed questions about my technical projects, problem-solving methodologies, and long-term career objectives. I had prepared extensively for these interviews, practicing technical presentations and developing clear explanations of my software development processes that could demonstrate both competency and innovation. The interview sessions had proceeded smoothly, with panel members expressing interest in my mathematical approach to algorithm design and my experience developing practical business applications. They had asked follow-up questions about specific technical decisions I had made during project development, indicating genuine engagement with my work rather than perfunctory review of application materials. When the rejection notification arrived through email on a Tuesday afternoon in late April, the impact was both devastating and bewildering. The letter was brief and formulaic, thanking me for my interest in the program while informing me that my application had not been selected for participation. No specific feedback was provided about areas where my qualifications had been insufficient or suggestions for strengthening future applications. Dr. Foster was equally surprised by the rejection and requested additional information from her contacts within Microsoft about the selection process and criteria that had influenced the final decisions. The informal feedback she received was diplomatically worded, but revealed that program administrators had concerns about my background preparation and social readiness for professional technology environments. The specific concerns centered on my lack of participation in established technology communities, limited exposure to industry networking events and professional conferences, and absence of connections to technology professionals who could provide ongoing mentorship and career guidance. Program administrators had apparently concluded that my technical abilities were strong but that my professional development would be limited by social and cultural factors that could affect my integration into technology industry environments. This feedback was particularly painful because it highlighted aspects of competitive disadvantage that were largely outside my control or influence. While I had worked systematically to develop technical skills and academic credentials, I had no access to the professional networks, industry connections, and cultural capital that many of my peers inherited through family relationships and economic privilege. The rejection also revealed the limitations of merit-based selection processes that ostensibly evaluated candidates based on ability and achievement, while actually considering social and cultural factors that reflected family circumstances rather than individual qualifications. Despite exceptional academic performance and demonstrated technical competency, my working-class background and lack of industry connections had apparently disqualified me from opportunities that were theoretically available to all qualified candidates. Elena's reaction to the rejection news was a complex mixture of disappointment, anger, and protective concern for my emotional well-being. She had observed my months of intensive preparation for the application process and understood that this rejection represented more than a missed summer opportunity. The setback challenged the fundamental belief that hard work and academic excellence could overcome social and economic disadvantages in competitive environments. "Mia," Elena said as we discussed the rejection during dinner that evening, "sometimes the game is not fair, even when they say it is based on merit. But that does not mean you are not good enough or that you should stop trying to succeed." Marcus approached the situation with his characteristic practical analysis, focusing on lessons that could be learned and strategies that could be developed for future opportunities. He recognized that the rejection provided valuable information about competitive dynamics in technology industries that could inform better preparation for subsequent applications and career development decisions. The immediate emotional impact of the rejection was compounded by social dynamics at Science and Technology Academy, where summer internship placements were frequently discussed among students and often viewed as indicators of academic standing and future potential. Several of my classmates had received prestigious internship offers, including positions at technology companies, research institutions, and university laboratories that would provide exceptional professional development experiences. Jennifer Walsh had been accepted for a summer research position at the University of Washington Computer Science Department, working with faculty members on artificial intelligence projects that could lead to publication opportunities and graduate school connections. Marcus Kim had received an internship offer from a biotechnology startup that would provide exposure to entrepreneurial business development and cutting-edge medical technology applications. The contrast between their success and my rejection was particularly difficult to process, because our academic performance levels were comparable, and my technical project portfolio was arguably more substantial than many of my peers who had received offers. The difference appeared to be related to family connections, industry networking, and social capital, rather than academic merit or technical capability. Dr. Foster recognized that this setback could have lasting implications for my confidence and academic motivation, if not addressed constructively. She requested a private meeting to discuss both the practical lessons that could be learned from the rejection and strategies for maintaining momentum toward long-term educational and career objectives. "Rachel," Dr. Foster said during our meeting in her office, "this rejection is disappointing and unfair, but it does not reflect the quality of your work or your potential for success in technology fields. Sometimes the most valuable learning experiences come from setbacks that force us to develop new strategies and approaches." She explained that competitive technology industries often operated according to informal networks and social connections that were not explicitly acknowledged in official selection processes but significantly influenced actual opportunities and career advancement. Understanding these dynamics was essential for developing effective strategies for navigating professional environments and accessing opportunities that might not be available through purely merit-based approaches. Dr. Foster also emphasized that the rejection provided motivation for developing alternative pathways that could potentially lead to even better opportunities than the internship program would have offered. Rather than viewing the setback as evidence of inadequate qualifications, I could use the experience as inspiration for creating my own professional development opportunities through independent projects and entrepreneurial initiatives. This perspective proved transformative for my response to the rejection and my approach to subsequent challenges. Rather than accepting that I lacked access to established opportunities, I began considering how I could create value through independent initiatives that would demonstrate capabilities, while building the professional relationships and industry recognition that traditional pathways had not provided. The summer that I had planned to spend at Microsoft became instead a period of intensive independent software development that would prove more valuable for my long-term career development than any internship program could have provided. Working with Dr. Foster as my supervising instructor, I designed an ambitious project that would combine advanced technical challenges with practical business applications while demonstrating capabilities that exceeded typical internship experiences. The project involved developing a comprehensive data analytics platform for small businesses that could provide sophisticated financial analysis, customer behavior insights, and operational optimization recommendations, typically available only to large corporations with substantial technology budgets. The scope required integrating multiple complex technical components, including database management systems, statistical analysis algorithms, user interface design, and cloud computing infrastructure. Dr. Foster connected me with several local business owners who agreed to participate in the development process by providing access to their operational data and feedback about platform features and usability. These partnerships created real-world testing environments that ensured the software would address genuine business needs rather than theoretical problems. Elena's bookkeeping business became the primary testing environment for the initial platform development, providing comprehensive access to financial data from multiple small businesses across different industries. This arrangement allowed me to analyze actual business patterns while developing analytical tools that could identify optimization opportunities and strategic insights that owners could implement to improve performance. The development process was more challenging and comprehensive than any internship experience could have provided. I was responsible for every aspect of the project, including technical architecture design, algorithm development, user interface creation, testing procedures, and business relationship management. The scope required developing capabilities across multiple technical disciplines while learning to manage complex projects independently. The mathematical background that had initially seemed insufficient for technology competition became essential for developing the statistical analysis and pattern recognition algorithms that formed the core of the platform's value proposition. The analytical problem-solving approaches I had learned through advanced mathematics coursework provided frameworks for creating sophisticated data processing capabilities that could extract meaningful insights from complex business information. The platform development also required learning advanced programming languages, database management systems, and cloud computing technologies that extended far beyond the introductory computer science coursework available through high school programs. I spent weeks mastering new technical concepts through online resources, professional documentation, and trial-and-error experimentation that provided comprehensive education in cutting-edge technology applications. By the end of the summer, the data analytics platform was functional and providing valuable insights for several local businesses that were using it to optimize their operations and improve decision-making processes. The software had identified cost reduction opportunities, customer acquisition strategies, and operational efficiency improvements that had generated measurable financial benefits for participating businesses. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.